Christianity, Democracy, and the American Ideal, a Jacques Maritain reader, compiled and edited by Jim Kelly. Introduction. For centuries, the Christian faith has served as a foundation for democracy. Individuals who rely on gospel values to guide their private and public lives make good citizens. They focus on things above the earth as well as on it, and thereby are more likely to reject the materialism and moral relativism that undermine the common good. Regrettably, many leaders in Western democracies reject this fact. Jacques Maritain, one of the great moral and political philosophers of the 20th century, wrote and spoke extensively about the threats that secularism, materialism, and coercive social engineering by state authorities pose to human persons and to the democratic experiment. This book contains some of Maritain's prophetic thoughts. It shows how, until recent times, the Christian faith has shielded America from these destructive tendencies, and it suggests how it can begin doing so once again. Respect for the dignity of the human person was paramount for Maritain. In his view, the dignity of each single human soul reaches its full expression in each person's freedom to enter into a direct relationship with God, who creates the order of naturally sacred things. Maritain argues that freedom defined as individual license undermines the dignity of the person, a condition that has been aggravated by recent decisions of the U.S. Supreme Court relating to controversial privacy rights not expressly contained in the United States Constitution or its amendments. According to Maritain, modern democratic governments have, quote, yearned to enslave man, end quote, by implementing social, educational, and legal policies that encourage a separation between God and humanity. In particular, he insisted that science and technology be subordinated to a religious ethic and serve a higher morality. Current debates over bioethics, including the ethics of human cloning and embryonic stem cell research, show the need for such subordination is greater than ever. Maritain understood that it was through a direct and intimate relationship with God that individuals receive what he called the, quote, energies of spiritual and social resurrection, end quote, so essential to democracy. He viewed God as the end of the human person and the prime source of political society. His views are directly relevant to the debate over whether the Ten Commandments should be posted in public places, including schools, courthouses, and public grounds. For Maritain, gospel values are compatible with the common good, and the grace of Christ is the means for realizing those values. But grace does not come cheaply. Maritain shows that, quote, the heroism of the plain man, end quote, is required to live in accordance with the gospel. This is especially so in modern society, where politically and culturally engaged Christians often encounter resentment and discrimination in the public square. In spite of such treatment, Christian leaders concerned about the issues of life, family, and marriage have embraced Maritain's challenge to awaken the people to the need for political action. Most education leaders understand the importance of gospel values and other peace-loving religious values to the building of the common good. However, they emphasize a technical, utilitarian education that does little to instruct children in how to handle their personal freedom responsibly. Maritain saw education at the crossroads in regard to the modern conflict between education for social utility and education for freedom. He was particularly concerned about the government assuming responsibility for the moral education of children. His concern is legitimate, as public school educators have embraced a full-fledged character education dogma designed to inculcate children in an essentially secular ethic, having no transcendent dimension. Due in large part to the devastating effects of secularism in America, lay Christians have recently embraced a multitude of ministries designed to heal the bodies and souls of those in need. In many instances, these ministries, referred to by Maritain as, quote, little teams and small flocks, end quote, have followed his prescription that they make private vows of prayer a central element in their missions. Yet, Maritain anticipated the modern tendency of a paternalist state to usurp the vital role traditionally played by faith-based and community organizations. To counter that tendency, he was one of the first to call for the decentralization of social life in favor of what he referred to as a, quote, personalist and pluralist, end quote, regime. In such a regime, the state would provide all nonviolent faith-based and community organizations with equal access to government social service, health, and education grants. Maritain's prophetic ideals have been realized through the recent expansion of government support for faith-based and community initiatives. Ultimately, financial cooperation between the state and faith-based organizations is hindered by a false interpretation of the Establishment Clause of the United States Constitution that perpetuates the myth that there must be an absolute separation of church and state. From Maritain's perspective, freedom of thought, religion, and association are imperative, and the state should not fund policies that inhibit the beneficial practice of, quote, free men speaking to free men, end quote. In conformity with Maritain's principles, numerous public interest law firms have recently been formed to protect the free speech and religious liberty of individuals and faith-based organizations. Although Maritain called upon Christians to become more active in the work of democracy, he placed equal emphasis on the need for Christians to be, quote, humble stars invisibly shining, end quote, by means of contemplation of the demands of the Christian life and on God as the source of truth and love. Maritain's equal concern for the vertical movement of man toward God and the horizontal movement of man through history arose from his concern about the degree to which modern democratic societies tempt individuals to abandon the pursuit of truth in favor of the pursuit of material wealth. Maritain also understood that contemplation and prayer are critical to the Christian social mission to, quote, exist with the people, end quote, by suffering with them. He was particularly moved by the manner in which, consistent with the Christian redemptive experience, the, quote, bruised souls, quote, of poor immigrants are transformed into a source of new strength and new hope for America. Because of his belief in the uniqueness of the human person and in religion as the guiding factor in a person's relationship to others, Maritain expressed frustration over those who were willing to sacrifice truth in pursuit of human fellowship. Although he was an early and influential participant in the formation of the United Nations and its subsidiary bodies, Maritain cautioned against those leaders who, sacrificing truth for human fellowship, advocated the practice of, quote, kneeling before the world, end quote. In his view, the pursuit of human fellowship should not be politicized by highlighting those human values and rights that facilitate economic development or population control, while undermining those human values and rights that protect and promote traditional interpersonal and family relationships. Maritain would be concerned over the United Nations' current promotion of a human rights education agenda in primary and secondary schools designed to impose a global secular religion that conflicts with the moral views of many families. Ultimately, although he was concerned about the progress of humanity, Maritain had no utopian aspirations. For him, the primary calling of the Christian is to intervene in the destiny of the world, quote, to have been present, quote, acting on history to the limit of our power. To the limit of his own power, Jacques Maritain was present to help humanity comprehend the proper relationship between Christianity and democracy, particularly in the context of the American experience. The lessons in this book show how we can continue his presence by using his wise ideals to improve American society and our global community.